Everyone admired the way Ada and Ruth laughed together. In photos, they leaned into each other like sisters. At weddings, they danced side by side. In church, they shared one hymn book, whispering jokes between verses. People used to say, if friendship had a face, it would be Ada and Ruth. But Ada had recently started to notice something strange. Ruth smiled a lot, but her eyes never joined the smile. The morning everything began to crack was a humid Tuesday in Lagos, the kind of morning where the air felt heavy, like it knew something bad was about to happen. Ada stood in her tiny kitchen, stirring ogbono soup, her phone pressed between her ear and shoulder. "Babe, you are sure you'll be home early today?" she asked her husband, Daniel. "Yeah," Daniel replied distractedly. "Work is light today." Ada smiled. 8 months of marriage, and she still felt lucky. Daniel wasn't perfect, but he was gentle, hardworking, and steady. Something rare in the chaos of the city. After the call ended, her phone buzzed again. "Ruth, good morning, my wife. I'm coming over later. Miss you." Ada laughed and typed back, "Come on, I'll keep food for you." Ruth had been Ada's best friend for 11 years. They met in university, survived NYSC together, cried together over heartbreaks, and celebrated together when Ada finally married Daniel after years of disappointment. Ruth had been there for everything, or so Ada thought. The first sign came quietly. Ada was folding clothes in the bedroom when Daniel walked in, his face tight. "Did you tell Ruth something?" he asked. Ada looked up confused. "Tell her what?" "That I lost money last year?" Ada paused. She had told Ruth once, casually, during a late-night gist, how Daniel had been scammed before they married and was still recovering financially. "Yes," Ada said slowly. "Why?" Daniel exhaled sharply. "She joked about it today, said I should be careful this time." Ada frowned. "That doesn't sound like Ruth." But Daniel didn't laugh. It sounded like someone reminding me that she knows. Ada brushed it off. Friends talked, friends joked. Still, unease settled in her chest. Weeks passed, and the small thing began to pile up. Ruth always found a way to visit when Daniel was home. She laughed a little too hard at his jokes, complimented him often. "You married well, oh," Ruth would say, smiling wide. "Some of us are still praying." Ada felt guilty for the tiny discomfort she felt. Jealousy had no place in friendship, she told herself. But one evening, Ada returned early from work because of a sudden migraine. As she opened the door, she heard laughter. Daniel's laughter, Ruth's laughter. She froze. They were in the living room, sitting closer than usual. Ruth's hand rested casually on Daniel's arm. The room went silent when Ada stepped in. "Oh, you were back early," Ruth said quickly, standing up. Daniel avoided Ada's eyes. "I had a headache," Ada replied softly. Ruth rushed to hug her. "Sorry, my love. Hope you are okay." Her smile was warm, but something in Ada's chest tightened. That night, Ada couldn't sleep. Daniel lay beside her, breathing evenly. She stared at the ceiling, replaying Ruth's laughter, the closeness, the sudden silence. You are imagining things, she told herself, but deep down, a voice whispered, pay attention. The tension grew. Ruth began calling Daniel directly. Don't worry, I just needed advice, she'd say casually when Ada asked. Advice about what? She never said. One day, Ada accidentally saw a notification flash on Daniel's phone while he was in the bathroom. Ruth, I wish things were different. Ada's heart slammed against her ribs. When Daniel returned, she asked calmly, what did Ruth mean by that message? Daniel stiffened. You went through my phone? It popped up, Ada said. Answer me. He sighed. She's just going through stuff. She confides in me sometimes. Ada nodded slowly. But that night, something broke inside her. The truth came on a rainy evening. Rain poured heavily that night, drumming against the zinc roofs and flooding the streets of Lagos. Ada had just returned from work, exhausted, when she noticed 3 missed calls from Ruth. That alone was strange. Ruth never called repeatedly unless something was wrong. Minutes later, her phone buzzed again. Ada, please, I need to see you tonight. It's urgent. Ada hesitated. Her chest tightened. Something about the message felt desperate, almost panicked. Is everything okay? Ada replied. Please, I'll explain everything. Against her better judgment, Ada agreed. Ruth's apartment smelled of damp air and cheap wine. The lights were dimmer than usual, the curtains drawn tight. Ruth looked nothing like her usual confident self. Her hands shook as she poured wine into 2 glasses, one for Ada, one she barely touched. Ada sat slowly. What's going on? Ruth swallowed hard. Ada, before I say anything, I need you to know I never planned for things to get this far. Ada's heart began to race. Get what far? Ruth looked up, eyes glossy. Daniel told me you saw the message. The room went quiet. What message? Ada asked, though she already knew. Ruth laughed bitterly. The one where I said I wished things were different. Ada stood up. Ruth, listen, don't play games with me. Ruth broke down. Not dramatically, but in a way someone cries when the weight of a lie has become too heavy to carry. He started with advice. Ruth said, you know how you always talk about your marriage, your worries, your fears. I felt close to it. To him. Ada's throat burned. One night, Ruth continued, after you complained about another argument, I told him you deserved better. He didn't stop me, and I didn't stop myself. Ada's hand trembled. How long? Ruth looked away. Months. Ada felt like the floor had dropped beneath her. So why now? She whispered. Why are you telling me now? Ruth wiped her tears. Because Daniel ended it. Ada froze. He said it was wrong. Ruth went on. That he loved you. That he wanted to fix his marriage. And last week, she paused. I thought I was pregnant. Ada breathed caught. I wasn't, Ruth said quickly, but it scared me, and then Daniel blocked me. Completely. Silence filled the room. So this confession, Ada said slowly, isn't because you were sorry. It's because you were afraid and losing. Ruth said nothing. Ada picked up her bag and stood. You didn't just betray me, Ruth. You waited until you lost control of the situation. Ruth whispered, Ada, we are done. Ada said quietly, don't call me again. That night, Ada confronted Daniel. He didn't deny it. "I wanted to tell you," he said, voice low, "but I was afraid of losing you." "You already lost something," Ada replied, "my trust." Daniel nodded, shame written all over his face. "I ended it because I realized I was destroying my home. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. But if there is any chance, I want to fix this." Ada didn't answer immediately. She cried that night, not loudly, not dramatically, just the quiet tears of a woman grieving the marriage she thought she had. Ada didn't leave, not because it was easy, not because betrayal didn't hurt, but because Daniel chose accountability and she chose boundaries. They went for counseling. Daniel cut Ruth off completely. Ada stopped sharing her marriage with outsiders. Ruth became a name they no longer mentioned. Healing was slow. Trust didn't return overnight. Some days, Ada doubted everything. Other days, she saw effort, real effort. Months later, Ada and Daniel were still together, but their marriage was no longer innocent. Trust had to be rebuilt brick by brick. Some days were quiet and hopeful. Other days were heavy with questions Ada didn't even know how to ask. Daniel kept his word. Ruth was gone from their lives completely. No calls, no messages, no accidental meetings. Ada blocked her number, unfollowed her everywhere, and stopped explaining herself to people who didn't need explanations. One Saturday afternoon, Ada stopped by a small supermarket in Surulere. After counseling, as she reached for a basket, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Ada," she turned slowly. It was Kemi, a mutual friend from university, the kind who knew just enough of everyone's business, but never the full story. They exchanged brief pleasantries. Then Kemi hesitated. "I almost didn't say hello," she admitted. "I wasn't sure." Ada smiled politely. "It's fine." Kemi lowered her voice. "I heard you and Ruth are no longer close." Ada didn't flinch. "We are not." Kemi nodded, then sighed. "I thought as much. Things haven't been easy for her." Ada didn't ask, but Kemi continued anyway. "She's been moving from place to place, lost friends. People don't trust her anymore. Even at work, she's isolated." Ada listened quietly, surprised by how little it affected her. "And Daniel?" Kemi asked carefully. "You too?" "We are working on our marriage," Ada said simply. Kemi studied her face, searching for bitterness, anger, or regret. She found none. "Good," Kemi said finally. "I'm glad." Ada nodded. As she walked back to her car, she realized something important. She no longer needed updates. She no longer needed revenge. She no longer needed explanations. Closure had come quietly, through boundaries, honesty, and growth. Betrayal doesn't always end with walking away. Sometimes it ends with wisdom. Not everyone deserves access to your life. Not every mistake deserves your silence. And not every broken relationship is meant to be repaired. Some people lose you not because you stopped loving them, but because you finally learned how to protect yourself. Thank you for watching this story. Please like, subscribe, and comment.